Hi, I'm Ken,
And I'm Yasmin. And
and
this
this
is
is Conversations
Conversations
with
with
Ken
Ken
and
and
Yes.
Yasmin.
Welcome to Conversations with Ken and Yasmin. And today we have a very special guest, a woman who I've known for quite some time and somebody who inspires me on a daily basis, Joan Price, known as the senior sexpert. Joan, welcome to Conversations with Ken and Yasmin.
Oh,
Welcome,
thank you so
Joan.
much. I love what you both do with these video conversations, and I'm honored to be on it.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Joan.
Thank you, Joan.
And Joan, first, I want to start off with congratulations about the Guardian article.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
saw that. How did that come about? I mean, as far as, dealing with the Guardian picking that book.
I had no idea that had happened until it was in print. I was never notified. I have a Google alert on my own name, which
Mhm.
means that I get a notification if my name appears somewhere. And there it was in the Guardian. I said, the Guardian, what? And, and so there it was with the Naked at Our Age talking out loud about senior sex being one of Kate Lister's favorite books about sex. And I had no idea that was going to happen. This just happened yesterday as we're recording now.
Mhm.
And my website traffic jumped 5 times normal in one day. And the UK Amazon is out of the paperback of Naked at
Wow.
Our Age. I don't know how many they had to begin with, but oh boy, they ran out. Order more.
Mhm.
And I've gotten orders personally from from US customers. I can only ship in the US, and it's just I didn't get a a lick of work done yesterday because all I could do was just watch the traffic and field congratulations. It was such a great day, but thank you for noticing it.
Congratulations. It's tremendous.
Joan, I wanted to talk about your journey from starting off as an English teacher. You are
Yeah.
now. And mainly because it's like I'm an educator, Yasmin's an educator, and it's kind of like it's like a continuation from what you were doing there to what you're doing now. But just the journey of starting off, like, what was it like for you teaching English?
I love teaching teenagers.
Mhm.
You know, I always said I don't teach a subject, I teach people. So
Mhm.
yes, literature and writing were my fields, but I was teaching teenagers and I love teenagers. Um, of course, it's one thing to love teenagers when they go home at 3 o'clock, and another thing, I'm sure, to live with them. But I loved the role I had, and they often asked me their questions after hours, and it was so exciting. I tried to be the kind of teacher I never had when I was
Mhm.
in school, and then my my progress. I've actually had 3 careers, so that was one that I did for 22 years. During that time, towards the end of that time, I was nearly killed in an automobile accident. A driver hit me head on, and I was not supposed to live. The doctor said, "We don't know how you lived through that." And my answer to that was, "I decided to." But that's probably a longer story than you want. But what happened there is I know that my fitness habit had kept me alive because I had been a very energetic student of aerobic dance. I would go after school every day and take the aerobics class before going home. Had kept my leotard and sneakers in the car, and that was part of my regular routine. And so I felt that when this car hit me and everything in me was smashed, face, uh, every bone in my face was smashed. I had a broken neck. I had a wrist fracture. And then the worst, if that doesn't sound bad enough, the worst injury was a shattered heel and ankle. And I'm always dealing with the repercussions from that. But when I saw, as I tried so hard to learn to walk again, I saw people who could walk and chose not to, who could get out of their chairs and chose not to, who had no idea of what they could do without even trying that I couldn't do and was struggling so hard to regain. And I realized that once I healed, I had the mission to share the joy of fitness. So that became my second career. I went back into the aerobics room, um, standing on one leg. And then when I was able to do almost everything I had done before, I trained to become an instructor and led my own group exercise classes. Then I started writing fitness articles and fitness books. I had to leave teaching because I couldn't figure out how to find more than 24 hours a day. If I'd been able to pack in 35, I would have kept doing everything, but I couldn't figure it out. So I had to take a leave from teaching and ended up with this new career in writing. And I wrote about fitness for, I've lost track of how many years. Then, do you really want this whole story? Should I
Oh yeah,
stop at any point?
definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Then a big turning point was menopause. The reason that was a turning point is that I didn't want to set an alarm for 6 in the morning to teach the 7:30 a.m. aerobics classes. And I mean, I was having sleep deprivation, night sweats, everything people describe. And I did not want to get up in the morning. So I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to switch from teaching aerobics in the morning to line dancing in the evening. Then I could sleep through the morning. So I did that. And it's really interesting how paths taken determine the rest of our lives. That what seems like a simple little decision based on almost nothing. Joan, you could have set the alarm. You could have never changed that. The love of my life, Robert Rice, was looking for a new place to dance. He was a trained dancer since the age of 2. He was at this point 64 years old and I was 57. He learned about my line dance class and decided, I've never tried that. He walked into the room, and as I describe it in my first senior sex book, I tried to remember to breathe. It was lust at first sight. Not love at first sight, because it takes a while to love someone, but oh my gosh, did I want to take him home. But I was a teacher, he was a student. I kept losing my place in the dance I was teaching because I could not take my eyes off this man. Fast forward to 9 months later, when he and I were a couple, and we were having the absolute best sex of our lives. And we thought, why is this a secret that older age sexuality is so amazing? And Robert said, well, you're the writer, write a book about it. So I did. I did that at age 61. I'm now 77. I've written 4 books and edited another. I am always writing or speaking about sex and aging. And it's the most wonderful profession I can imagine. And the only one I've ever found where the older I get, the more credibility I have.
And I will say this, from having watched you teach a line dance class.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, did people, I mean, I had people that were like, 20s, 30s that just could not keep up. I mean, Joan had them like sweating and panting and breathing, and they're like stopping to get water, and Joan's like, come on, let's go. I gotta take a break. Just the amount of energy and the way that those people, they're just like, oh, we can hang. No, they couldn't. They couldn't handle it.
Yeah, I'm sure they thought that. They thought, well, golly, the 70-year-old, I guess at that time is teaching a dance class. Yeah, really. Let's we can do that a half concentrating, and no, it wasn't.
It was like watching people like get to a point where it's like, I'm gonna go get some water, and then they would be gone for 15 minutes and then come back, and I was just laughing.
So Joan, age was never a deterrent.
Oh no, it was
in your life ever. It was never.
Well, I'll tell you something about why. I mean, I joke about now, well, getting old is better than dying young, but I almost did die young.
Right.
I was supposed to die at age 34. And so every day is a gift. Every year is a gift. these wrinkles, I've got wrinkles on my wrinkles. That's a gift. It's as much a gift as my tracheotomy scar. It we wear our badges. That's how I feel about it. We gain wisdom, and the changes in our bodies and our faces are badges.
Mhm.
We earn them.
Why do you suppose people have such difficulty accepting if they're fortunate enough to age, after hearing your story?
Thank you.
Why do you think there's I don't or now post-COVID, is there still that resistance to aging after seeing so many people of all ages
Ooh.
died? Do you see it's going to change, or is there still a resistance?
I wonder if it's going to change because of what you're saying. So many people lost people, and especially older people died, and older people were more at risk. And the fact that my demographic, those of us who lived through it, did live through it, we have this um, special privilege and special understanding of how we could have been like all these other people we've heard of, or that we know personally, or that we were related to, or that we loved. So I hope that if something good comes of this, it's that we treasure aging. But to answer why people are so anti-aging, our whole society, the media, everything teaches us that to be young, not only young, but young and slim and hard-bodied and usually white, um, that's the value, that's what's desirable, that's what's attractive, that's what our world is built around. And that lets an awful lot of us, doesn't it?
Mm.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. And when I talk to, it's usually women who say, uh, I have this new relationship. It's about to get sexual. I'm so embarrassed about my body. What do I do? Can we just have sex in the dark? Um, wait. Where did you get that idea? Let's look at where you got that idea. Oh, and if I get them to examine where they got the idea that only young hard bodies are desirable, and to see where it's taught to them, and then I ask them, what else have you been taught along the way that you have rejected? And then,
Mm.
oh, well, of course, I was told I wasn't even supposed to want sexual pleasure. I wasn't even supposed to have orgasms. I wasn't supposed to use sex toys. I wasn't blah, blah. So they realize, I mean, not all of them, but many of them then realize um, that is something I was taught, and I can unteach myself that. So much of getting older is unteaching yourself what you were taught to believe.
You had mentioned the media before.
Mm.
How would you advise someone to 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 block out images that induce these thoughts of self-doubt with aging in the body? Because you're active on social media. I mean,
Mhm.
as a writer, as a public speaker. But how do you advise people to block out unhealthy, emotionally unhealthy images and ideas?
I ask them to ask themselves, does this serve me?
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
How does it serve me? How does it not serve me? If it doesn't serve me, why am I buying into it? And do I really need to? And how can I do the work to disassociate myself from that belief system? And you can't, I think, I mean, this is just me, I think you can't really um, feel desirable until you see yourself as desirable. And part of what I teach people in my work in sex and aging is your body is capable of great pleasure. Celebrate that. Celebrate what your body can do for you. Now, do those wrinkles interfere with your celebration of your sexuality? Why should it? Some things that could legitimately interfere, the medications you're on, the medical conditions you have to take, the how your joints ache when you try to get into what used to be your favorite position. Yeah. How long it takes you to reach orgasm, how the difficulty in that. Uh, sure, these are legitimate concerns. Let's look at what's really in the way of us enjoying our full sexuality and what we can do to address those things instead of putting our minds to, oh, but I don't look like that anymore. You know what? You never did look like how you looked.
Mm.
You said the same thing to
Mm.
yourself when you were 30, when you were 20,
Yeah.
when you were 15. You only saw what didn't live up to these impossible standards of beauty and sexuality.
I wanted to talk about the OBGYNs and how they treat women, especially as they age. Mainly because I know for me, I'm one of those people where I have a lot of female friends that come to me about things that they should be talking to their OBGYNs about. Yet I'm starting to hear the stories about how these doctors are not equipped to handle the emotional side of aging.
Oh, how long have we got? I love this topic. Okay, first of all, I'm going to broaden it even more. It isn't just women.
Mhm.
Um, here's what happens. Doctors, if they get any sexuality education at all, get maybe an hour or two in their entire medical training. None of it is about sex and aging. So unless they deliberately say, my patients are getting older, I need to educate myself. Where is the education I need? Let me go get it. Unless they do that, they're just not informed. Now, there are many, many medical professionals who are informed, who are wonderful. They're in the minority, however. Most not only don't know how to handle it, they are themselves embarrassed about handling it. They don't know the answer. So their quick answer is to either throw a pill at something or to throw a pill at a man, throw lubricant at a female, and that's pretty much all they know to do, many of them. But also, this is complicated because we, the people who need some medical advice, don't know how to ask for it either. So one of the things I do, and you may have encountered this, Ken, as you took workshops from me or looked at what I have online, is I've developed a medical mantra. I teach people how to talk to their doctors. And it goes like this. I'll just say it. And if you want me to go through it slowly so you can repeat it after me, which is what I ask my audiences to do, I'll be happy to. But this is the medical mantra. Doctor, my sexuality is important to me. This is what is interfering with it. Let's run the tests and find out what's going on. And if you can't help me, please refer me to someone who can. So I teach people to say that. I have workshops where they spout this back at me. And then they go to their doctors and they say this. And one of two things happens. Either the doctor totally freaks out and realizes he or she or they have got to get some new education, or they realize they have to create a referral list because they don't know the answers. And they shouldn't need to know all the answers. They should need how to know how to diagnose a problem and or refer them to the specialist who can help them. And if we could get that going, we could change everything.
There are women I know who are not aware there are other options besides, estrogen or a lubricant. They think that's it. That's what they were given, and that's the end of that.
I know. And so many doctors will give them a response that's similar to, well, what do you expect at your age?
And just to throw it at them
Yeah.
in the office, the first conversation, here it is.
Mhm.
Try. No conversation, no discussion.
Yeah.
It's a very humbling experience. It's very raw. It's numbing.
It's numbing. That's exactly
Numbing.
what it is. It's numbing.
Yeah.
It stops conversation. I've developed a workshop that I give for medical professionals, but since it doesn't carry CEC's, continuing ed credits, the doctors don't show up. They don't make the time, or maybe they just don't have the time. But I have given this workshop at times where 4 people showed up.
Mm.
And so unless I'm paired with an organization that brings me in and they're already offering the credits, then the people will show up because then there's an incentive too. I don't want to dump on doctors here. They're
No,
doing the best they can.
yeah, yeah,
I love doctors. Doctors saved my life. They
yeah.
gave me a new face. They have done so many things for me. They help me walk again every few years. They help me out with that again. And my father was a doctor. My brother is a doctor. So I am so pro doctor.
Yeah.
But docs, you gotta do the work and learn this stuff. The information is out there. It's not a great mystery, but it's going to take some learning.
Is there a dialogue you have between partners when one partner is going through perimenopause, menopause, and the other doesn't have that experience and it's not affected by it? So,
I could create that. Most of my followers are well beyond menopause.
mhm.
They're generally age 60 and beyond. And but sure, I could create that
But I
easily.
think what you're saying is very beneficial to people under the
Yes.
age as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, most of what I teach applies to younger people as well. And in fact, another workshop I give is called What I Wish I'd Known About Sex and Relationships When I Was Your Age. I gave this to about 200 college students. It was just wonderful. Abroad, it was an international college, and I had people who were saying the medical mantra in English and then translating it to their own language.
Mm.
And so there were 6 languages going on and all. But yeah, what I teach is important for people at all ages to learn. And the reason that I directly talk to older people is people don't do that. No one does. We are the invisible generation sexually.
Mm.
And so I want to be known as the one that talks to seniors. And I'll talk to juniors or seniors in training also, but the primary audience is people over 60, 70, 80 and beyond.
And they feel open to ask questions and to have this discussion with you?
It's very interesting how, I don't know whether it's out of desperation or just because when they read my books or watch my webinars or attend a workshop, they feel, well, she's accessible. I can just walk right up to her. She's not going to judge me. And then even though I've never met them in my life, they will do that. They'll approach me in email, they'll sign up for consultation, and then they'll just spill what's in their heart. And I love being able to help people that way.
I want to ask you a question about intimacy and trust when it comes in relationships, especially with dealing with the topics of sex and aging.
Yeah.
I know sometimes it's such a difficult line to cross or difficult subject to breach when you're in a relationship as you start to age and things change.
Oh, yeah.
And dealing with the elements of intimacy that actually happen emotionally when these changes need to happen in order for this relationship to progress in a forward direction.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
This is huge. I was so distraught and so profoundly in grief. I wasn't in Greece. I was in grief that I was not functioning for most of a year. I was doing some things. I had gotten to where I could do some of my work, but I wasn't fully functional. I had grief brain, as I describe it. I don't know if that's a legitimate word, but I think it makes sense. And I would burst into tears with what would seem to an outsider to be no provocation. It would be just being reminded of something, or just even something as trite, as especially huge among couples who've been together for a long time. And so they're doing what used to work and it isn't working anymore. And so I teach them to say things like, darling. I love making love with you. Our intimacy is very precious to me. As I'm aging, I'm discovering that my body is changing, that some of how I want to be touched, where I want to be touched is changing. Could we go on a journey of exploration to find out what works better now?
Mm.
To do it as a sexy invitation rather than, I hate what you're doing, doesn't do it for me anymore. To avoid any of that, that shaming or blaming, but to just assume that your partner wants to give you pleasure. Your partner wants to know more about that.
Mm.
I had a lover at one point who said, I love it when you give me directions because I really want to give you pleasure. And that way I know that I am. And that really stayed with me because so often we're afraid to give suggestions. We're afraid to give direction. We're afraid of, oh, they're going to take it wrong. Oh, I'll hurt their feelings. But if we can have a kind of relationship that's open enough that we can say, that feels nice, but I'd rather you did this there. Or may I take your hand and show you what I'd like? Or can we use my vibrator while you do that? To have them, the agency over your own sexuality, your own sexual pleasure, and your own relationship to be able to ask for what you want. It's not that simple sometimes. There are people who will take offense. And so sometimes in those cases, it isn't a matter of just saying this thing and everything's solved, but working up to it. I've been learning some things about how sex changes as we age. I wonder if we could make a date just to talk about this. Is there a time in the next few days that you would be open to that? And so to get that way, you're not naked, you're not under the covers, you're not in the middle of sex trying to change things, but you're approaching a person as, let's have a conversation. Let's sit down over a cup of coffee or during our walk in the park and and talk about these things and see what we can learn to go on this journey of exploration together. I love the phrase journey of exploration.
Listening to you, Joan, and your work, there's a tremendous emotional element to
Yeah.
all of this.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if that's why people engage in emotional affairs. I'm hearing more and more of, are they afraid of physical intimacy? Are they, is it the body? They don't feel comfortable with their bodies. Why are more people engaging in the
Well,
emotion?
many are self-conscious. There are people who are self-conscious about their sexual function, how well they're working, how good they look. There are also many penis owners who are afraid that they cannot maintain or achieve an erection for long enough for what they consider real sex, which is penetrative sex, which is only one of the many possible ways of having sex. Another thing I spend a lot of time teaching is great sex without penetration. So there is in that way a reluctance to get involved sexually, but a great emotional need. However, there's also a great desire to get involved sexually, but not knowing quite how to go about it, being afraid of being judged, being afraid of, what, will he laugh when I take off my blouse? Or will she laugh when she sees I can't stay hard? And so rather than open it up with conversations, for example, I do not always have reliable erections, but I would love to please you with my hand, with my tongue, with your favorite vibrator. Can you help me give you pleasure, whether or not I have an erection? Now that's pretty wonderful to be asked that, isn't it?
And it's one of those things about the misconception between intimacy and sexuality. A lot of people put them, they're not synonymous, so to speak. And I know like a lot of conversations, especially with men, when it comes to intimacy, is a topic that they are terrified to breach.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to an understanding of the concept of masculinity.
Yeah.
You know, something as simple as like, you know, watching a movie, being very close to your partner, holding their hand, letting them fall asleep in your arms, waking up, cooking them breakfast, things like that, going on a small walk. Those small things build an element of trust that it's kind of hard to get through to some men, that it's the small things that lead up to the big connection.
Absolutely.
I hope you saw my reaction. I was just falling for you all over again here. Just going, oh, ask me out, Ken. Let's do this. Yeah, you're right. That extending comfort and pleasure without having goals. That's a key. That's a key. People don't understand. We're so goal driven.
Yeah.
And I know you're aware of my newest book, Sex After Grief, Navigating Your Sexuality After Losing Your Beloved. One of the things I talk about there is how to get sexual in stages with people, not to think it's all or nothing. Let's say someone has been widowed and is really feeling ready for human touch again, but maybe not everything. Maybe not the whole array of sexuality, and maybe not a committed relationship either, but some comfort, some laughter, some touching. So ways to talk about that, ways to say, I haven't been sexual with anyone since my spouse died. I am feeling hungry for human touch, but I don't know how much I'm ready for. Could we take this in stages? Could we just kiss for a while? Could we just cuddle for a while? Could we explore touching with the understanding that if I need to stop, you will stop? To have all that out in the open. There's so much fear about that, about getting into a relationship after, I won't say after grief, because that's a misnomer. You don't get, grief isn't ever over, really. You get through it, you get around it, you get in and out of it, but it doesn't really end. So during these stages where you're getting close to being able to establish a relationship with someone else, how do you then talk to someone about what you need, what you might be ready for, even if you're not sure what you're ready for, and what you'd like to try, and what the boundaries will be, what the no will be, what the let's stop for now will be.
I want to talk to you about the journey into writing Sex After Grief. Because I know I was reading on your website about the decade it took for you to get to the point where you felt comfortable writing this book.
Well, first of all, Robert, the man I told you about in the beginning, who walked into my line dance class, we did eventually marry, but we were together only a total of 7 years. 7 years exactly, from first kiss to last kiss, same date. And he died of cancer. I was so distraught and so profoundly in grief. I wasn't in Greece. I was in grief, that I was not functioning for most of a year. I was doing some things. I was I had gotten to where I could work on do some of my work, but I wasn't fully functional. I had grief brain, as I describe it. I don't know if that's a legitimate word, but I think it makes sense. And I would burst into tears with what would seem to an outsider to be no provocation. It would be just being reminded of something, or just even something as trite as being in Trader Joe's and going by the tuna fish cans I would always buy tuna fish for Robert because he liked it. I didn't need it. But I would go by and I'd start to reach for the tuna fish and then go, no, he's dead. He's not eating tuna fish anymore. I cried at the DMV trying to get my car, his car changed into my name. Just, I would start crying at anything. And it was a really long process. I was so distraught and so profoundly in grief. I wasn't in Greece. I was in grief that I was not functioning for most of a year. I was doing some things. I was I had gotten to where I could work on do some of my work, but I wasn't fully functional. I had grief brain, as I describe it. I don't know if that's a legitimate word, but I think it makes sense. And I would burst into tears with what would seem to an outsider to be no provocation. It would be just being reminded of something, or just even something as trite as, with therapy, with grief counselors, with a lot of work, with extensive journaling, with some wonderful friends who supported me through my craziness, before I could laugh again, before I could be open to another relationship. And I would try, once I felt ready, I would try things. I would try dating. I would try an old lover. I would try various things and often go home crying.
Mhm.
And then it just took, okay, but so that didn't work this time. I'm going to write about it in my journal privately. No one will ever see it, I thought at that time. And then maybe I'll try something else. And I would just kept recording my feelings and recording things I wanted to try and fantasizing about what might work. I even recorded some sexy dreams I had, and I'm glad I recorded them. Otherwise, they would be lost to me. And then it wasn't really until, 2019, when the wonderful Brenda Knight, who had been my editor at Cleus Press and was now at Mango Publishing, said, Joan, is there a book still in you that only you could write? And I went, oh my gosh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Sex After Grief. Yeah. Had she not asked that question, it never would have, it wouldn't have come forward. It would have always been a private thing. Not that I hid what I was going through. I shared a lot of it. But as far as writing an entire book about it and telling about all my missteps and being really vulnerable on the page and going, they're really going to know a side of me they might not have signed on for, but here it is. I need to be authentic, and I need to, I need to be authentic. That's who I am, and it's going to happen that way or not happen at all. And since then, this book it won the ASJA, American Society of Journalists and Authors, Best Self-Help Book of the Year last year. So, and Naked at Our Age had won that in 2012. So I feel, okay, this was definitely the right thing to do.
I'm curious about STD rate and seniors.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about that a little bit.
I don't have at my fingertips the current STD rates. However, what I do have is a recommendation to always use safer sex with everyone, every time, until or unless you're in a long-term exclusive relationship. Most of my webinars are for a small fee, but there is one I made called Safer Sex for Seniors with Joan Price that was sponsored by Lucky Bloke, the wonderful people at Lucky Bloke, and that is free. It's on YouTube. It's a free 45-minute webinar all about why seniors need to use safer sex and how one does that. And I'm not assuming anything. I mean, I know many seniors never used condoms because they got into a long-term relationship fresh out of high school or college, and then was with that person for a long time. Now they're either divorced or widowed and are newly dating and go, I've never done any of this before. I can't get pregnant, so why is it even an issue? It is an issue because seniors are in a very high growing rate of STIs of all kinds, precisely because we don't think we need to use barrier protection, and we do. I also go into things like how to put a condom on a soft penis. There is a demonstration of how to do that, and you're just going to have to watch it to find that. Because that's, again, something someone will say, oh no, I can't keep my erection if we try to put a condom on. Oh, you don't need to, watch me. There are also things that people don't necessarily know about, such as the internal condom, formerly known as the female condom, ones that vagina owners wear. And, but that's all explained in that video. Also, when you might want to use gloves, and how to get the right size condom, all sorts of things that people go, well, I don't know where to find that stuff. Well, there it is.
When it comes to the topic of sex education, besides that it's horrible in the public school setting or even private school setting, but as you go towards becoming an adult and becoming more mature, the obstacles that people have to go through to possibly seek some type of advice or direction as they feel that it is unnecessary, so to speak.
Well, of course, the right answer to why do I need that is because you deserve sexual pleasure and intimacy. You deserve for that not to be a problem. And so does your partner. And so does your partner. But what I find more often than that, Ken, is that people think there aren't answers to the problems they're encountering. They think they've been taught this bill of goods of, well, I'm just old, and this is what happens when you get old. And they don't know that, no. There's a workaround, or there's a solution, or there might be a reason you're having this problem, which has nothing to do with your age or little to do with your age. So what I'm often doing is sort of buoying people up and saying, you have a right to this information, and the information is out there. So rather than go through the rest of your life with it only getting worse, definitely not getting better, because it's not going to solve itself. It hasn't solved itself by now. It's not going to solve itself. Then let's see who has the answers that you need. Is this a medical problem? Is this an emotional problem? Is this something a therapist can help with? Is this something where you just need the sex ed of what happens when you age, or when you've had this kind of medical condition, or these operations, or taking these meds? There's so much information, and people don't even know it's out there. They think, well, obviously, if I'm going through this, it's because I am fill in the blank how many years old.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also find it's a contrast about aging and that I speak to women who feel invisible, and you've used that word before.
I have.
But do you also find that people can have more fulfilling sexual experiences as they age because you know what you like?
You've read my books. Yeah, in fact,
It's so
my
simple.
first.
I mean,
Thank you for the lead into that. My first book, Better Than I Ever Expected, Straight Talk About Sex After 60, written when I was 61, and Robert was 68, was all about that. It was all about why sex is perhaps better now than ever, and definitely better than we expected. And some of it is exactly what you just said. We know ourselves better now. We know what we like. We know who we are. We've made the relationship mistakes already, hopefully, that we're going to make. and so we're at ease in our bodies and our emotions more than we were before. Yes, there's so much that that's better now because of who we are right now coming to it. Yeah.
And if you look back and think about early experiences, if you can even remember them, I mean, you know,
I would not want to
anyway.
be 20 or 30 again. Oh my goodness.
It's always like, oh, how did you figure out you didn't like this? Well, some traumatic experience,
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
through that.
Or if you
yeah.
can't remember them, because that's saying
No,
something as
I know.
well. Yeah, that's an indicator.
Ah, I know. Um,
You know, listening to you, Joan, and I know you work specifically, your work has been with a certain age with seniors, but oh, there's such a need for your work and
oh,
your interaction with people of all ages.
well,
I
thank
mean,
you.
I'm listening to you. I wish we had had you in school.
I'm
You
not
know,
quite
I
ready
mean,
to travel yet, but I will be soon.
yeah.
Meanwhile, I travel virtually.
But just for different ages, just to have this
Yeah.
dialogue. Now, what about working internationally? You did mention an international school, cultural views of intimacy and sex. What do you see when you work with different countries, different cultures, religions, languages? Is that
Yeah.
also a point of
Usually I
connection?
speak to seniors when I speak internationally. That one
Okay.
to college students was an anomaly, but I would love to have that happen again.
Uh-huh.
Um, my biggest cultural difference was I was invited to speak at a celebration of aging for a group of Russians. And this celebration was going to take place at Montenegro in this resort town. The group of Russians would come for a week to this resort in Montenegro, and they would hear all sorts of speakers and do lots of dancing and music and lots of drinking starting at 10 in the morning. I didn't understand that very well, but anyway. So I was invited to talk about sex, and I had an interpreter. I felt like the United Nations. I was speaking in front of the group. All of them had headsets, and in a booth were two interpreters who were trading off doing simultaneous translation. And they had warned me at the beginning. Well, first, there were some really funny things about it. The interpreters wanted to see my outline. So I gave them my outline. They wanted to make sure they knew the words in case there was some specialized language I was using. So they'd ask me, what is PIV?
Hmm.
Penis and vagina. It means heterosexual intercourse. Do you want us to translate PIV or heterosexual intercourse? So that we would be fixing these things. And they warned me, they said, Russians here are not like Americans. We don't talk about sex easily. We do as younger people, we don't as older people. There's a real divide among the generations. The younger ones are westernized, but the older people are old school, and they are probably never going to ask you a question. That doesn't mean they don't need what you have to say. So just keep going, even if it looks like they don't care.
Mm,
They asked questions until we had to leave the room.
of course.
Hmm.
And some of the questions, some of them were so earnest in a really funny way. Like, when you talk to us, do you imagine us all naked?
That's so funny.
I don't even know what I answered. Maybe, oh no, just some of you. I don't know what I answered to that, but they asked many questions, and many of the questions were just the same as American audiences. And then also afterwards, from the time I left the tent to the next day when I was again back in the tent, they would follow me asking their questions. They would find me at breakfast. They would just plop themselves down next to me if I was sitting somewhere. And they would struggle through their high school English rather than have the interpreter come over and hear what they were saying.
Hmm.
The interpreters were always available. In fact, the interpreters would sort of keep an eye on me, and they'd dash over when they saw I was surrounded by a group. They said, do you want me to interpret? And that they would all go, no, go away, go away, go away. They were so embarrassed about having these questions that they would rather struggle through the language problem than have someone else hearing it.
And that leads to my next point of discussion on shame.
Yeah.
And shame and intimacy and shame and sex and where that comes from. And
Yeah.
we could say, oh, that's religion, that's cultural. I think it could be more than
Yeah.
those categories as well. It could be a past experience. What are your thoughts on sex and shame and how to overcome that?
Oh gosh, that's
Yeah.
so huge. I wish I could just say, oh, just do this and it's gone. No, it's usually going to take therapy. If it's deep-seated shame, and if it's shame because of a trauma, because of a toxic relationship, or a toxic family, or some sort of being shamed publicly. But all I can do is help people own their sexuality, own their pleasure. When it's a religious thing, I might say, why would we be given all these avenues of pleasure if we weren't supposed to enjoy them?
That's a great answer.
And also, at what age, at what age are we supposed to retire our genitals? Why? Why? It depends, of course, on the individual experience. I'm giving you a generalization here. But I feel for every question, there are many answers. And for every problem, there is at least one and maybe many solutions. To encourage people to ask the questions, that's the first step, to encourage them to read what's out there, to be able to discriminate between what's out there as a useful educational resource and what's out there just trying to sell them something. Because there is a lot of the throw the pill or throw the herbal remedy at it that people just have to look through and go, okay, why are they saying this is the only answer to the problem I'm having?
Joan, for those of us that cross the half-century mark, what would be your advice as far as navigating the world past 50?
Read my books. You know, I'd say that.
No.
Yeah, read my books. Be open-minded. Expand the boundaries of what good sex is. Explore how you like to give and receive sensation and pleasure without needing to fit it into a certain groove or goal. You're a great communicator, but I would say work on the communication always. How do you explain, describe what would bring you pleasure? How do you elicit that from a partner who might not be as easy a communicator as you are? Above all, let go of goals. Experience the pleasure. It may not always lead to orgasm, or it may lead to more orgasms than you thought possible. But don't compare yourself with 20-year-old you or 30-year-old you or even 40-year-old you, because so what? So what about that? Instead, look at what you want as 60-year-old you and 70-year-old you, and what can you do to make that happen?
I like let go of goals, because that can be applied to a relationship. You know, when you're entering a new relationship, instead of thinking, well, what am I going to get out of this? What's the goal? Instead of just enjoying the moment of meeting someone and being in this relationship.
When I talk about goals, I mean more, this is how it's supposed to turn out. And if it doesn't turn out this way, it failed.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you're talking about relationships, I mean, I'm a big believer in what Dan Savage is always saying, that every relationship fails until one doesn't. And just because a relationship ended doesn't mean that it wasn't worthwhile.
That's
That
right.
your regret shouldn't be, this never should have happened, unless it was toxic and demeaning to you. But if it was good while it was good, then take that with you. What did I learn about myself through that? What did I learn about what I want, what I have to give? What did I learn about what I can do better next time? Or what I'm looking for? What did I learn about what I'm really not looking for that I thought I was? Every relationship is a learning experience. I was single most of my life. I've had important relationships. I had 2 marriages. I had some committed relationships, but if you think the years spent in a marriage or a committed relationship versus the ones where I was single, um, single more of my adult life than not. And looking back now, at the time when something ends or something doesn't go right or something doesn't happen that you want it to, you think, damn it, this just is never going to go right. I'm a failure. No, I look back even at the ones that didn't go, especially at the ones that didn't go right. And I think, look what I learned from that. Look what I didn't have to repeat. Look what I got out of alive.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I think about I would say my most toxic relationship, my only toxic relationship, and that I stayed in it too long. And I think, why didn't I just break up with him sooner? And now looking back, I go, but look how I had to get stronger, what I had to learn so that that would never happen again. And if I just passed it off as, well, I'm never going to think about that again, it's over, I would lose a lot of what I otherwise gained.
Are you finding, I'm just curious, who asks more questions? Women, men, or
I'm so glad you're asking that because I was just thinking this week about how this has changed.
okay.
It used to be huge majority women.
Hmm.
Then it started to be, then when Naked at Our Age came out, men started coming out too and saying, oh, good, you're talking to us too. Well, look, here's something that I need answered. And then when my personal consultation segment of what I do started really increasing over the pandemic, it's about half and half, which surprises me in a way. It does and it doesn't. It surprises me because I would think that a man would want a male point of view, but maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe what they really want is maybe a woman's point of view, but more just someone who knows this stuff, who can fill in what they don't know and give them new ways to think about it. And I'm finding that the men who do, we do the personal consultations by Zoom, unless the person would rather do it by phone. But when we do it by Zoom, which is almost all the time, but 90% of the time, I find they are quite at ease. They've been thinking about their questions. And I always say at the beginning, we're going to talk frankly. Is that okay with you? And anything you're uncomfortable with, you tell me and we can switch off. But I'll assume that we can talk frankly and openly. And yep, that's what I'm here for. It's really wonderful. It's really wonderful. I feel honored when someone wants to trust me with something like that, with their really intimate questions. But I also, I wish it were more common knowledge. I wish you could sign up for sex ed for seniors at any local college and get this information without having to seek it out so deliberately.
Have you also worked with seniors who are LGBTQ seniors as
I
well?
have, and I would love to more, but I find that they self-select to really want to go to an LGBTQ educator,
Yeah.
which is very understandable.
Okay. What do you want to do next, Joan? I don't want to talk about goals because we're trying to avoid that right now. But what's next in the universe for you? What are you exploring?
I am busier now than I have ever been in my life at age 77. I'm approached all the time by not just individuals, but companies that want to work with me, that want my input on something, a campaign for seniors that they're creating, um, even a long-term thing. I'm the resident senior sexpert for hotoctopus.com, but for example, I've been doing that since March 2020. It was coincidentally, it started at the beginning of the pandemic. We had no idea that this was the beginning of the pandemic when we started, or that this would be something we'd be doing still a year and 2 months later, but we're firmly doing it. And sometimes companies want to have me work on a video for them, maybe that they're going to aim for seniors, and different things going on. I'm doing virtual presentations. I am not planning a new book because a book takes so long to write, and I'm too busy. I don't have things that I want to say. I'll stop doing that, and that in order to write another book. So the wonderful information I have is already in all these books you see behind me. And I will continue doing the virtual presentations and the different campaigns I get involved in, and helping my followers and writing articles. I do Q&A for Senior Planet once a month, and regularly for Hot Octopus too.
I wanted to ask this earlier when you were discussing aerobics and you were discussing that physical activity. Do you think, as you are a very active person and you had a career in physical fitness as well, and you're a dancer, that physicality lent itself to your really being in tune with the body, which led to this work as well? Is there a connection you see?
100%.
Okay.
100% connection. The more physically active we are, the more in touch we are with our own physicality, and that includes our sexual physicality. And also, the more physically fit we are, the physically active we are, the more we are sending blood flow through the body, including to the genitals. Because that's one thing that happens with aging, is that blood flow gets a little more sluggish, and we take longer getting aroused and reaching orgasm. And the way to increase that is increase the blood flow, exercise before sex.
And that physical work was not about, I'm doing this so I can maintain a youthful look. It doesn't sound like, oh, let me do aerobics so I can look, 25. It doesn't sound like that's why you were in that field, that there was something else.
Oh yeah, it was, let me do aerobics because I love how it feels.
You loved how it feels. Yeah.
And let me share this joy of movement. You too can love how it feels. And then with line dancing, and I still teach line dancing. I mean, I've had to take a hiatus during the pandemic, but once the gym's open again, I'll be back. I teach contemporary line dancing, which is not country Western. It has some country Western, but it's mostly contemporary pop and all sorts of different styles of music, blues. It's really fun. With that, the goal is that you learn choreography as well as getting your exercise. You have to memorize choreography as you go. So especially as we age, we're putting our brains and our bodies together, plus having that social interaction. All that feels so good.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
Joan,
good for sex.
As I have been listening to you, I would love for you to, if you could answer this person who would say, I would love to take a line dancing class, but I'm afraid. I would love to engage in a new relationship, but I'm afraid. I would love to have sex, but I'm afraid. I would love to. I think fear is an element people have.
Yeah.
You do not seem like someone who's, I don't know, are you afraid of anything?
I don't like car crashes very much.
Right, right. But
I'm,
what do but you do things. I mean, what would
yeah,
you say to people who are paralyzed by fear?
I would say, if not now, when?
Mhm. I want to write a book, but I'm afraid.
Yeah,
You
if
know,
not now,
and all
when?
the things that you've done. I'm imagining
Uh-huh.
the person who is afraid of.
Yeah, this is the youngest you're going to be from now on. So if not now, when? And for the people who are afraid to line dance, people come into the line dance room, the first timers, and they come in inevitably saying, I have 2 left feet. And I say, oh, that's okay. I've got some right feet in the closet. What size would you like?
That's
I mean, sometimes it's a matter of just saying, okay, I accept your fear, but that doesn't have to stop us, does it?
and trying new things as we age.
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? You've lost an hour of your time.
Mm.
I'll refund your hour if you don't like it.
Mm.
And they
And
go,
that
how
could
would
be
she do
applied,
that? She can't. Oh, well, okay, I guess
Mm.
I'll stay. She might be fun.
but that could be applied to everything we've discussed today, trying
Yeah.
new things as we
Yeah.
and learning. And you seem very, just keep going, right? Learning.
Well, learning is one of the most important things. This is a little off the topic, but maybe relevant for some people. I'm in a book club, which I organized. And during the pandemic, of course, we couldn't meet in person. So we started meeting online. And that was fine, actually. It was so good that we started a short story group that meets every week
Mm.
online. Every week, we read a short story and we discuss it. And through the worst of the pandemic, it kept us connected. This was during a time that we were not seeing anyone else. And there were people who were in a household of one who literally saw no one else. There were others that maybe had a bubble of 2, but we were starved for intellectual stimulation and for emotional connection.
Mm.
And we got that by discussing short stories in a book club online. So just throwing it out there
Mm.
for where there's a will, there's a way, but more than that, be creative in your solutions. What do you need? What's another way to get it?
Speaking of that, what about using apps to hook up with someone? How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, if that's what people want to do, that's fine. I don't have a particular feeling about it because I figure there are a lot of things people like to do that might not be my personal cup of tea, but that doesn't matter at all.
Right.
What matters is what do you want to do and
Right.
how can I help you facilitate you doing it? If it's a matter of just saying, yes, you do have the right to do that, or you can do that
Right.
without fear, without shame. Or is it, do you need help selecting apps that would be safe? Do you need help knowing what might not be a good idea to turn on your webcam for?
Mhm.
What is it exactly that's stopping you or that you're wanting? And it isn't, there's so many ways to be sexual these days, whether
Yeah.
it's through technology or through personal touch or through imagination or watching films, reading erotica, so many ways to be sexual. And then, oh my gosh, get me started on sex toys. We haven't even talked sex toys yet. Don't tell me we won't talk sex toys because that's my beat is sex toys. Anyway, I got distracted for a moment there. That people often come to me wanting my approval for something they want to do.
Mm.
And I don't judge anything as long as it is consensual and doesn't hurt anyone who
Right.
doesn't want to be hurt. Something that is consensual with the 2 parties doing it. However, there are spouses at each end that don't know and have not consented. That's not consensual to me. Consensual is all parties affected are consenting. But beyond that, why would I judge and what would it matter? You're here for you getting your pleasure. How can I help you with that?
Mhm.
So, Joan, since you brought up the topic, let's go down the sex toy line. Because I know this is something you like to talk about. No, it's basically understanding the stigma that goes with people looking at sex toys as an avenue for pleasure.
Mm.
And trying to like remove that stigma, or basically people that get the wrong advice when it comes to sex toys. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I've been reviewing sex toys from a senior perspective on my blog for maybe a dozen years. One of the things I will often say is at our age, a well-chosen, well-placed vibrator may be the difference between orgasm and no orgasm. It's sometimes that simple. We, and I'm talking not just vulva owners, but also penis owners, often need more stimulation in order to feel it enough to reach orgasm than we used to, than a partner can provide, that our fingers can provide. A vibrator's one use is to help us reach orgasm. It's an orgasm tool. And I often hear, because these are seniors, people say, I should be able to reach orgasm naturally. Or more often I hear, my wife wants to use a vibrator, but I think I should be enough for her. Oh dear. Well, as far as the naturally goes, I tell people, do you wear reading glasses? That's not natural. Do you wear a knee brace when you go dancing, or should you not go dancing if you need a knee brace? We do a lot of it. Do you color your hair? We do a lot of things that aren't natural. If you defining natural as what happens if you don't do anything to help it. And we do that because we want to do a certain thing or we want to feel a certain way. And a vibrator is just a tool. It's just an orgasm tool to help us reach orgasm. It does not eliminate a partner. In fact, some of the best sex you may have is with you, your partner, and your favorite vibrator all together. That is fantastic. Best orgasms ever. And the vibrator doesn't replace a partner. The vibrator is just a tool for easier orgasms. I talk about it a lot, and sometimes people feel a little foolish about the stereotypes they had about vibrator use because they realize, well, where did that even come from? What's that about? And then there are people who will not change their mind. Nope, never use a sex toy, never going to. So what should I do about not being able to reach an orgasm?
It's kind of like the idea of where hysteria came from.
Yeah.
As far as historical development of everything, and basically going, if you look through the history or the angles of history, going like, they used to do what when they would consider women hysterical?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
they're mentally unhinged because of their uterus.
So
but I'll tell you something, it wasn't quite the uterus that they wanted touching.
Also with the development of sex toys, now that a lot of technology is being implemented within these new sex toys, as far as navigating through these new companies that are developing different type of devices, as far as helping seniors guide through the multitude of new companies that have developed within the past several years?
I'd say read the reviews. There are a number of sex toy reviewers that are absolutely fabulous. One of my favorites, I'm sure one of your favorites, is Epiphora. Hey, Epiphora. Oh, she's incredible. She's very snarky sex toy reviewer, but she gives you the real stuff about this toy, what's wrong with it and what's right with it. She's young. I review sex toys. I'm not snarky in my reviews. I will give pros and cons, but not in a snarky way, of vibrators that I think appeal to seniors. I will ignore the ones that are just like every other one that I think, well, there's nothing really new to say. This is as good as such and such, but not as good as that. I want to review the ones that either make a real difference for seniors as far as intensity and ergonomics and the things that make it easier to use, the controls, and there's so much. I could give you a list of all the things I look for. they do it in a unique way, or they do it in a better way, or they do it in a way you're really going to love because either they are small enough for travel, or they are as strong as anyone could possibly need, or they are slim enough for vaginal penetration if you don't like girthy toys. There are so many different things that a toy could be the best for. So when I receive a new one, I'll test it. I'm a tough job, but someone's got to do it. And and then if I find it worthy or worthy of a blog review, then I'll do it. And if I don't, I won't, because I feel that not only is my time very valuable, but so are my readers. So is my readers' time. And so if something is, I could say good things and I could say bad things, and you probably like this one better anyway, but that one would be worse. Well, what's that worth? So I want to give people something they want to know, something that's new and something that is real quality. So that's what I look for. And I generally don't review the toys I consider bad. I ignore the ones that I consider and I also ignore the ones that are bad, unless the bad one is getting undeserved hype. And then I want to warn my readers. It's only happened about twice, but and then once one was so bad that I just couldn't help it. I had to talk about it. But usually I just ignore the ones that I don't think the readers care about knowing about. It's really important, I think, that we normalize vibrator use. Just as we would normalize getting a neck pillow if we have neck arthritis, which I happen to have. A neck pillow makes a difference between sleep and no sleep. And a vibrator makes the difference between orgasm and no orgasm. So what is the problem?
We wouldn't have these same conversations about an exercise bike.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh, no. Good quadriceps should be natural. Stamina should be natural. We shouldn't have to do anything about it. And also, there's so many wonderful new sex toys for penises now that the ones that I specialize in reviewing or having my penis owning reviewer review are the ones that can be used with both an erect penis and a flaccid penis. Because most of the penis toys were the sleeve kind that you had to have an erection to even use. But there are some wonderful ones now from Hot Octopus, from Fun Factory, and a few other companies where an erection is not required. So for people who say are prostate cancer surgery survivors, they don't get erections, but they can have orgasms. Or for whatever other reason, there might be erectile difficulties. Let's still give these penises some pleasure.
Definitely. What do you see in the future of sex education for seniors in this day and age?
My dream is that senior sex and pleasure and intimacy will be normalized. It won't be weird to be talking out loud about senior sex. I see a world where the education is easily accessible and plentiful and reliable, and that people don't feel ashamed of their desires or their wishes or their needs, and that doctors will become educated, and it will all be part of the conversation. And nobody again will have to say, well, what do you expect? You're old.
Until next time. Ken goes first?
Yes.
Really? Who are you?
Yeah, this time. All right. Sorry.
Okay.